Welcome to This Week I Played, an unscripted video series where I talk about a game I recently played. This week I played Islets, a very wholesome metroidvania game that is so addicting to play. The story is about a world where there's floating islands, and at a certain point 5 of those islands come together, and they end up making a very happy, healthy biome for all the people who live on the islands. So not wanting these islands to ever drift apart from each other, the people on these islands create magnets that will keep them pulled together. But as time goes on, people forget about them, and since there's nobody taking care of them, they stop working. This then leads to the islands drifting apart and monsters taking over the islands. We're then introduced to the main character of the game, Eco, who's hoping to become a warrior and somehow bring the islands back together. But as Eco's enjoying a peaceful time in the sky, your rival Snoot comes by and destroys your ship. And this is where the game starts off with you stuck on an island with no ship to get off of it, so you set out exploring. Soon after this, we're introduced to another main character of the game, Graybird. He also is an aspiring hero, but can't find his courage. And I cannot stress this enough, he is my favorite character in the game. Helping him find his courage became my #1 priority. Now the gameplay is very much your standard metroidvania, where you explore around and find different abilities so that way you can access new areas. The abilities you get in the game range from being able to double jump, to climb up walls, to getting arrows that leave a trail behind that you can walk on. On top of the abilities you get, there's also upgrades you can find. There's pretty standard upgrades like being able to increase your damage or up your health, but then there's some pretty fun ones like enemies exploding when you kill them, or you releasing blasts that damage things around you when you take damage. Right away, also, Graybird allows you to use his ship so that way you can get to the different islands. Most of them are blocked off, but you're able to eventually get to them by upgrading your ship. And this is one of the parts of the game that actually surprised me and I enjoyed way more than I thought I would. When you're flying around, there's boss encounters you can get into, and they're basically just a bullet hell you're trying to survive. But 2 of the things the game does very well here is 1, whenever there's enemies nearby, it auto aims for you. So you're never worried about trying to do a twin stick shooter thing and focus on dodging. You can just hold down your fire button and focus on dodging alone. The other thing I like is they put a red circle around you, which is your hitbox. This way it's very clear what's going to hit you and what you're going to dodge. Now as you explore the islands, you come across different characters, and all of them are very uniquely written. I don't think there was a character that was written in a way I didn't like them. Every character really worked in this game. There's Snoot, who slowly starts learning his lesson about being so pompous and putting others down. There's Graybird, who's learning to be courageous, who will send you letters updating you on the monsters he's fighting. Snoot ends up getting an assistant, Gooba, who is probably one of the funniest written characters in this game. Eventually he stops being Snoot's assistant and becomes the assistant for one of the main bad guys you're trying to kill. That probably was one of my favorite parts of the game, is when you find him with just this unbridled optimism, helping out one of the most evil people in the game. There's even a hamster you come across who's trying to bring honor to their family legacy by being a hero. They're trying to kill a stone witch who keeps turning people into stone. And honestly, this was another character I really loved, but then they got turned into stone by the witch. This was another character where I was like, I don't know how, but I will help this person out. This also brings me to the boss fights of the game, which are done so well. There's a lot of fast-paced action going on where you're trying to dodge and attack at the same time. Each of the bosses have a very fast-paced, high-energy feel to them. Patterns are pretty easy to recognize after you've seen them a few times, but you're always left in this state of trying to figure out when's the best time to attack or when's the best time just to focus on dodging. On top of this, the bosses all have a very unique style to them that set them apart. Eventually though, you start coming across a bunch of the magnets, and activating them draws the islands back together. When a new island chunk joins the rest of them, this opens up a new chunk of the map. There's certain parts that you can't access unless you're going from a different island into the other. I thought this was a fun way for them to kind of have you backtrack without going through the same areas you've been through constantly. Where I tend to have an issue with metroidvania games is when it feels like you're going through the same area over and over without really progressing. Whereas with this game, you do tend to go through some of the same areas, but it's never too much, and you're always progressing and opening up new areas. There's also lots of shortcuts to open up, as well as teleporters across the map. Eventually too, you can buy an upgrade that lets you teleport from save points to teleporters, and this really helps you move around the map a lot. Each of the areas have their own unique look to them as well, so it's always easy to tell where you're at. There's also specific gimmicks that are unique to some of the areas. For instance, in one part of the map, you're given an umbrella where you can float around with it, but this is eventually taken away from you. In another area of the map, you're able to jump higher when you get these green balls of energy, but they're used up after your first jump. This was a really fun way to set different parts of the map apart without giving you new abilities to explore them. And if it wasn't already obvious from watching this far into the video, the visuals in this game are gorgeous. All the characters have a very fun stylistic design to them, and each part of the map feels very vibrant and alive, like it's a lived-in world. I'm always amazed when I play a game like this just how beautiful some of the art can be. Accompanying this is a soundtrack that is very well done. Each section of the map has its own theme, and it really sets the mood for whatever environment you're in. but by far the track I probably enjoyed the most is the one that plays when you're in a boss encounter. It's very upbeat and just makes it feel like it's your time to shine and be the hero. Now as for the difficulty of the game, it's right in that sweet spot for me, where it was enough to be a challenge but not enough to make me feel defeated. I would be dying from time to time, but it was never too much. And with each boss encounter, whenever I finished it, I was always like 1 or 2 hits away from death, and it was always right up to the line. Now I personally was playing on the normal difficulty, but there's also a hard mode if you want more of a challenge, or easy mode if you just kind of want to enjoy the world. Now as you're progressing through the game, you find out about the 3 great beasts, and they're the reasons why the world can't be brought back together, because they keep stopping anybody who tries. You're able to go through most of the game without seeing much from them, except maybe a horrifying statue or 2 of them. But when you activate the final magnet, they awaken and try to destroy it, so that way they can separate the islands again. And it was here I became so proud, Graybird kicked into action and just started fighting him, trying to protect the magnet. You have to find a way to deactivate the statues, and I have never been so motivated in a game before than trying to find a way to deactivate these so Graybird would be okay. So with a bit more exploring, you find each of the beasts and have to fight them to destroy their statue. And on the final beast, I don't want to give too many spoilers away on how it ends, but what I will say, I absolutely love the way it brought all the characters together, and it was just a very wholesome moment in the game. Honestly, the whole experience of this game was just a joy through and through. When I first sat down to play the game, I was only expecting to play a few hours and then come back to it and kind of chip away at it, but I ended up beating the game within 2 days because I was just having so much fun with it. The game wasn't extremely long, it was only about 7 to 8 hours, but it was the perfect length. It got everything it needed to in there without being bloated. Now I do have a few little complaints with the game. It's nothing major, just some little gripes I have. One of the first things that I didn't really like was the fact that when you use the bow, it fires really fast. This just kind of makes it difficult because you have a limited number of arrows you can carry. However, later on you get an upgrade that whatever arrows miss an enemy just automatically get retrieved for you. So that ended up making this not that big of a deal for me. I also did get a little lost from time to time. It was nothing ever too major, but there's just a few times I kinda had to wander around to figure out where to go. But by far the biggest issue I had is you're able to buy an upgrade that lets you see where the rest of the upgrades are on the map. However, once when I went through and collected them all, I was still 1 short. When I was looking up to see if anybody else was having this issue, it looks like it is something that is known about and that they are working to fix. And honestly, any other bugs I was seeing people report looked like those were being taken care of right away too. I also will cut a lot of slack for bugs in this game, considering a single person made this game. I can't imagine the time and energy that went into making this game. So some little bugs like that are to be expected. If you're a fan of metroidvanias, you should definitely check this game out. The characters are lovable, the game is so fluid and fun to control, the game is difficult without being overbearing. There honestly is just not enough good things I could say about this game. But before I end this video off, there's one final thing I must do. Alright, now the video can end.